Begin in Bessemer tonight. Board of Education met for a work session after the state school superintendent threatened to step in and potentially take over the struggling system.
WVTM 13's Aaron Llewellyn live and local tonight outside the Bessemer Board of Education building. Aaron, the board addressed several of those issues tonight.
Yeah, guys, share that meeting just ended a few hours ago, and during that time, staff here at Bessemer City Schools gave updates on reports on finances and building maintenance. And Lee Jones, the president of the Board of Education, tells me that the school board has already come up with a plan to address some of those issues from the State Board of Education, but some school board members say that there is still more work that needs to be done. Thursday night marks another meeting for the Bessemer City Schools Board of Education in the wake of a possible takeover by the Alabama Department of Education.
We do not believe Dr. Mackey's letter is an accurate reflection of what is really going on. The concerns that are listed in his letter put all of the blame on the board.
Christina Bullock, a member of the Central Alabama Federation of Teachers, was the only member of the public to address the board during the meeting. She called for accountability from both the Board of Education and the state.
We do agree that there are some definite concerns and inconsistencies with the lack of following board policy, state codes, school law, and parliamentary procedure.
The BOE has a retreat scheduled for July 26th, just 2 days after its plan of action to the State Department of Education is due. But board member Renee Scott argued shifting focus away from a potential intervention with the retreat is a mistake.
But we really didn't say how we were going to go about doing those things. I think we need to spend more time in doing that. If you say we're going to ask or say we're going to do this, I think we need to go in a more in-depth plan how we're going to reach that.
She asked the board to restructure the retreat to make sure those concerns could be fully addressed in time.
If we're serious, I'd like to show that we're serious. So I'm asking the board to come together
before education leaders lose more confidence in the board.
It is apparent that the Bessemer Board of Education and the leadership of the city of Bessemer Schools are not capable of making the decisions that are best for the employees and students of Bessemer City Schools.
Now, staff say that the State Department of Education is conducting an audit of the school system's finances. That started in May or June, so they're still going through the numbers, and there's no timeline for when that will be completed. And they're also doing an audit of the facilities as well. Live here in Bessemer, Aaron Llewellyn, WVTM 13.